The night sky of Atlantis was always purple. It had been purple for as long as anyone could remember. The 3 moons hung low over the horizon, casting their silver light across the endless marshes that surrounded the royal palace. Princess Yuna stood at her window, watching the stars like she did every night. She had been doing this for 300 years, and she was very tired of it. She was tired of the palace. She was tired of the rules. She was tired of the same conversations with the same nobles about the same boring topics. She wanted something different. She wanted something exciting. She wanted to feel alive again. Then she saw it. A ball of fire cut across the purple sky. It was bright orange and yellow, completely different from anything she had seen before. At first, she thought it might be a meteor, but it moved too slow. It left a long trail of black smoke behind it as it fell toward the forbidden. Marshes in the distance, the ground shook when it crashed. Even from her tower, Yuna felt the vibration through the stone floor. Her heart began to beat faster. This was the first interesting thing to happen in decades. She knew she should tell the guards. She knew she should wake her mother, the queen. A strange object falling from the sky could be dangerous. It could be a weapon from an enemy empire. It could be a trap. But Yuna was not good at doing what she should do. She never had been. That was why her mother called her the difficult daughter. She grabbed her dark cloak from the chair and wrapped it around her shoulders. She slipped out of her chambers and moved through the palace hallways like a ghost. The servants were asleep. The guards were watching the main gates, not the small servants' door near the kitchens. Yuna had learned all the secret paths when she was a child. She had spent years exploring every corner of the palace, finding hidden passages and forgotten rooms. She still remembered every one of them. The marshes were dark and wet. Strange creatures made sounds in the night. Things splashed in the water. Things crawled through the mud. But Yuna was not afraid. She was a Larry. Her people had ruled this world for 10,000 years. She had powers that most creatures could not imagine. She could kill almost anything with just her mind. She followed the smoke trail for almost an hour. Her shoes became wet and muddy. Her cloak caught on branches and thorns. But she did not stop. She had to see what had fallen from the sky. Finally, she found it. The ship was small, maybe 20 feet long. It was broken and bent, with pieces scattered across the marsh. Fire still burned on some parts of it, sending orange light dancing across the water. The metal was gray and strange, not like anything Yuna had ever seen before. There were symbols painted on the side. She could not read them. She climbed into the wreck carefully, stepping over broken wires and shattered glass. The inside smelled like smoke and something else. Something metallic and warm. That was when she found him. He was lying on the floor near the front of the ship. He was not moving. His skin was soft and brown, with no scales at all. He had black hair on his head, messy and dirty with blood. He wore a torn uniform that was dark blue with silver buttons. More of those strange symbols were printed on his chest. Blood was coming from a deep wound on his side. The blood was red. Yuna stared at it. She had never seen red blood before. All Allery had silver blood. It flowed through their veins like liquid metal. But this creature bled red, like the sunset. She should have been afraid. She should have been disgusted. This was an alien, a creature from another world, maybe dangerous, maybe diseased. Every rule she had ever been taught said she should leave immediately and report this to the authorities, but instead, she felt curious. She knelt down beside him and touched his face with her fingers. His skin was warm, much warmer than Allery's skin. She could feel a pulse beating weakly in his neck. He was still alive, but barely. "What are you?" she whispered. He did not answer. His eyes stayed closed. His breathing was shallow and rough, but his hand moved slightly, his fingers twitching, as if he was trying to grab something. Yuna looked at the wound on his side. It was deep and ugly. He had lost a lot of blood. If she left him here, he would be dead within the hour. She made a decision that would change her life forever. She would save him. Getting him out of the ship was very hard. He was heavy, much heavier than he looked. Yuna was not physically strong. The Allery relied on their mental powers, not their muscles. But she could use her mind to lift things. And that is what she did. She wrapped her psychic energy around his body and lifted him carefully out of the wreck. It was difficult work. Using her powers for so long made her head hurt. But she did not stop. She carried him through the marsh to an old temple that nobody used anymore. It had been abandoned for centuries, left to rot in the swamp. But Yuna had discovered it when she was young, and she had used it as her secret place ever since. Nobody knew about it. Nobody would find them here. She laid him on the stone floor and looked at his wound again. She did not know how to heal alien creatures. She did not know if Allery medicine would help him or hurt him. His body was so different from hers, but she had to try. She took the healing crystals that she always carried in her pocket. They were small, blue stones that every Allery noble owned. She pressed them against his wound and pushed her energy into him. Trying to force his body to heal at first, nothing happened. The wound kept bleeding. His breathing kept getting weaker. Yuna pushed harder, using more of her strength. Her head began to pound with pain. Sweat ran down her face. Then slowly, the bleeding stopped. The edges of the wound began to close. His breathing became a little stronger. It took many hours. By the time the sun rose, Yuna was exhausted. She could barely keep her eyes open, but the creature was still alive. His color was better. His pulse was stronger. She stayed with him all day, watching over him. She sent a message to the palace saying she was sick and wanted to be alone. Nobody questioned her. Nobody ever questioned a princess. He woke up on the second day. His eyes opened slowly. They were dark brown, like rich earth. He looked at Yuna with confusion and fear. He tried to move, but his body was too weak. He fell back with a groan of pain. "Do not move," Yuna said gently. "You are hurt. I am helping you." He stared at her. His mouth opened and closed. He said words, but Yuna could not understand them. His language was completely different from hers. It sounded rough and strange, full of hard sounds that Allery tongues could not make. She pointed at herself. "Yuna," she said slowly and clearly. He blinked. He seemed to understand. He lifted one weak hand and pointed at his own chest. "Tesu," he said. Yuna smiled. It was a start. General Day One was not a patient man. He had served the queen for 500 years. He had fought in a dozen wars. He had killed more enemies than he could count. And he had learned in all those centuries to notice things that others missed. For weeks now, Princess Yuna had been acting strange. She left the palace at odd hours, sometimes before dawn and sometimes after midnight. She smiled for no reason, even during the most boring council meetings. She seemed distracted, like her mind was always somewhere else. She was hiding something. Day-1 did not like secrets. Secrets were dangerous. They could bring down empires. He called his best scouts to his chambers. These were Allery warriors who could move without being seen, who could track anyone anywhere. He gave them simple orders. Follow the princess. Find out what she is hiding. Report only to me. The scouts obeyed. They tracked Yuna for 7 days, staying far enough away that she would not sense them. They watched her leave the palace. They followed her into the marshes. And on the 7th day, they found the abandoned temple. They found the human. Daewon listened to their report with growing anger. His scales turned dark blue, almost black, which happened when he was furious. An alien creature. On Volantis, the sacred homeworld of the Allery people, hidden by the princess herself. This was not just strange behavior. This was treason. He gathered 20 of his best soldiers. He armed them with weapons and shields. He marched to the temple that very night. Inside the temple, Tesu heard them coming. He had recovered much of his strength over the past weeks. Yuna had fed him and healed him and taught him her language. He was still weak, but his soldier instincts were sharp. He heard the footsteps. He heard the armor clinking. He grabbed the metal pipe he had saved from his crashed ship. It was not much of a weapon, but it was better than nothing. "Someone is coming," he told Yuna. Her 4 eyes went wide. How many? Many, at least 20? Taesu moved to stand in front of her. He held the pipe ready, his body tense and prepared. Yuna grabbed his arm. You cannot fight them. They have powers you cannot imagine. They will kill you in seconds. Maybe, Taesu said, but I will try. Why? You could run. You could hide. Taesu looked at her. His dark brown eyes were calm and steady. You saved my life. I will not let them hurt you because of me. Before Yuna could respond, the door exploded inward. Day One's soldiers poured into the temple. Their eyes glowed with blue psychic energy. Their armor shone in the torchlight. They moved with the speed and precision of professional killers. Taesu swung his pipe at the first soldier, but the soldier did not even blink. He simply raised one hand, and the pipe stopped in midair. Psychic energy ripped it from Taesu's fingers and threw it across the room. Another soldier lifted Taesu into the air without touching him. Invisible force wrapped around his body like chains. He struggled, but he could not move. Day One stepped forward. He was tall, even for an Alari, nearly 7 feet of muscle and scale. His eyes burned with cold light as he studied Taesu like a scientist examining an insect. What is this creature? He asked. Let him go, Yuna shouted. He is not a threat to anyone. He is an alien, Day One replied. On our sacred world, hidden by our princess, I will decide if he is a threat. The soldiers dragged Taesu out of the temple in chains. They were not gentle. They pulled and pushed him through the marsh, letting him fall into the mud again and again. Yuna followed behind, shouting and threatening, but they ignored her completely. They marched through the night. By the time they reached the palace, the sun was rising. They threw Taesu into a cold cell beneath the throne room and locked the heavy iron door. The next morning, the royal court gathered. The great hall was the largest room in the palace. Its walls were made of living crystal that glowed with inner light. Its ceiling was so high that clouds sometimes formed inside it. 1,000 nobles could fit inside, and today, it seemed like all of them had come. Queen Hannah sat on her throne at the far end of the hall. The throne was made of crystal too, grown from the same stone as the walls. It had taken 100 years to shape. The queen herself was ancient. She had ruled for 6,000 years, longer than most civilizations existed. Her scales were pale gold, faded with age but still beautiful. Her 4 eyes held the weight of centuries. Power radiated from her like heat from a fire. Behind her stood the high priestess Sua, keeper of the sacred laws. Sua was younger than the queen, only 2,000 years old, but her face was hard and cold. She believed in the old ways. She believed that aliens were inferior beings, fit only to serve or die. The nobles filled the rest of the hall, whispering and pointing as Day One's soldiers brought Taesu forward. He was still in chains. His clothes were torn and dirty from the march. His face was bruised from where the soldiers had hit him, but he walked with his head held high. He did not look down. He did not show fear. Yuna stood near her mother's throne, her fists clenched at her sides. She wanted to run to Taesu, to protect him, to break his chains. But she knew that would only make things worse. She had to be smart. She had to play by the rules. For now, we have captured an intruder, Day One announced, his voice echoing through the hall. An alien creature found hiding in the forbidden marshes. Princess Yuna has been concealing it for many weeks. The whispers grew louder. The nobles stared at Yuna with shock and judgment. Some looked angry. Some looked disgusted. A few looked curious. Queen Hannah raised one hand. The whispers stopped instantly. When the queen wanted silence, she got silence. What is this creature? She asked. Her voice was calm, but there was something dangerous underneath it. A human, Day One reported. From a system called Sol, in the outer regions of the galaxy. They are a minor species. Short-lived, physically weak, with no psychic abilities at all. They pose no military threat to the Empire, then why hide it? The queen turned her cold gaze to her daughter. Una stepped forward. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought everyone must hear it, but her voice was steady when she spoke. I found him in his crashed ship. He was dying. I saved his life. Why? The question hung in the air. Una did not know how to answer. How could she explain the strange feeling in her chest? How could she describe the way Taesu made her feel alive? How could she tell her mother that for the first time in 300 years, she had found something worth caring about? Because it was the right thing to do, she said finally. Queen Hannah's eyes narrowed. The right thing? We do not save aliens, daughter. We rule them, or we destroy them. Those are the only options. Perhaps there should be other options, Una said. The court gasped. No one talked to the queen like that. No one challenged her wisdom so openly. Even Day One looked surprised. Before the queen could respond, Taesu spoke. Your Majesty? His voice was clear and strong, cutting through the shocked silence. His allery was not perfect, but everyone could understand him. Your daughter saved my life. I owe her a debt that I can never repay. Please, do not punish her for showing kindness. Day One stepped forward and hit Taesu across the face. The crack echoed through the hall. You do not speak to the queen, creature? Taesu spat blood onto the polished floor. He looked up at the general without flinching. His eyes were steady. I speak the truth. Hit me again if you want. It will not change anything. Something flickered in Queen Hannah's eyes. Was it surprise? Interest? Respect? Una could not tell. This creature has spirit, the queen said slowly. I will give it that. She turned back to her daughter. What do you want, Una? What is your purpose in bringing this human before my court? Una took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been preparing for. There was no going back now. I invoke the ancient right of sanctuary, she declared, her voice ringing through the hall. By the old laws of our people, I claim this human as my protected. His life is bound to mine. No one may harm him without harming me. The court exploded into chaos. The first trial began 3 days later. At dawn, the soldiers came to Taesu's cell while the sky was still dark. They unlocked his chains but kept their weapons pointed at him. They marched him through the palace, past the sleeping nobles. Out into the cold morning air. They brought him to a massive stone structure in the center of the palace grounds. It was called the Maze of Shadows. From the outside, it looked like a simple building, maybe 50 feet wide and 50 feet tall. Gray stone walls. A single iron door. Nothing special, but Taesu knew better. He had heard stories about this place. Warriors went in. Many did not come out. General Day One was waiting at the entrance, along with several other officials. Una was there too, standing apart from the others. She looked like she had not slept at all. Her eyes were red. Her scales were pale. The trial of mind, Day One announced, his voice full of dark pleasure. The Maze of Shadows is not made of stone walls. It is made of psychic energy. The paths inside change constantly. The shadows attack your mind, showing you your worst fears. Most Allery warriors complete it in 6 hours. Many go mad before they finish. He paused, smiling coldly at Taesu. And a human? With no psychic abilities at all? You will wander in darkness until your mind breaks into pieces. Taesu said nothing. He looked at the iron door, then at Una. She was crying silently, trying to hide it from the others. He walked over to her. The soldiers tensed but did not stop him. I will come back, he said quietly. Wait for me. Then he turned and walked into the maze. The darkness swallowed him immediately. It was not normal darkness. Normal darkness had shapes, shadows, hints of light. This was complete and total. Taesu could not see his hand in front of his face. He could not see the floor beneath his feet. He might as well have been floating in empty space. The air was cold and thick, pressing against his skin like wet cloth. Whispers echoed from every direction, speaking in languages he did not understand. Some sounded like Alari. Some sounded like other things entirely. Then the vision started. He saw his ship crashing again. He felt the heat of the fire, smelled the burning metal. He heard the screams of his crewmates as they died. Jinho, the the pilot, burning alive in his seat. Yunbai, the engineer, crushed under falling debris. Their faces appeared in front of him, twisted with pain. "Why did you survive?" they asked. "Why are you alive when we are dead?" Taesu closed his eyes, though it made no difference in the darkness. "You are not real," he said out loud. "You are just shadows." The visions did not stop. They showed him other things. His childhood on Earth, his father lying in a hospital bed dying of cancer, the girl he had loved in school, walking away with another man, his mother crying at his father's funeral, every failure, every regret, every moment of shame from his entire life. But Taesu did not break. He had faced darkness before. In the military academy on Earth, they had trained him for psychological torture. They called it resistance training. They would lock young soldiers in small dark rooms for days at a time. They would play recordings of their families screaming. They would show them fake videos of their homes being destroyed. They did everything possible to break their minds. Taesu had not broken then. He would not break now. He tore a strip of cloth from his sleeve. He placed it on the ground to mark his starting point. Then he began to walk forward, one slow step at a time. Every few steps, he tore another piece of cloth and dropped it. When he hit a wall, he marked it. When he hit a dead end, he turned back and tried a different path. He counted his steps out loud to stay focused. 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn left. 5, 6, 7. Dead end. Turn back. He built a map in his head, piece by piece. It was not easy. The paths kept changing. Walls appeared where there had been open space before. But Taesu kept marking, kept counting, kept mapping. The shadows kept attacking. They showed him Yuna dying in horrible ways. They showed him failing the trials and being executed. They showed him his bones rotting in this maze forever. He ignored them all. "Focus on what is real," he muttered to himself. "One step at a time. That is all that matters." Hours passed, or maybe days. Time had no meaning in the maze. Taesu kept walking. His legs ached. His throat was dry with thirst. His stomach cramped with hunger. But he did not stop. Outside, the sun rose and fell. The nobles who had gathered to watch grew bored and left. Even Daewon went to attend other duties. But Yuna never moved. She stood at the entrance without eating or sleeping, waiting. On the third day, Taesu emerged. He stumbled through the iron door and collapsed onto the grass. His clothes were soaked with sweat. His face was pale and thin. His eyes were red from strain, but he was alive. He was sane. Yuna ran to him and fell to her knees beside him. She held his face in her hands, touching him to make sure he was real. "You did it?" she whispered. "You did it." "One down," he said weakly. 2 to go. The second trial came 5 days later. After Taesu had rested and eaten, they took him to the arena where Alari warriors trained for combat. It was a large circle of sand surrounded by high walls. Stone seats rose up on all sides, where nobles and officials gathered to watch. In the center of the sand, a massive creature waited. It was called a Verkesh. It had been bred for war over thousands of years. Its body was covered in thick black scales that could stop a sword. Its claws were longer than Taesu's forearm, sharp enough to cut through metal. Its eyes glowed red with hunger and rage. "The trial of body," Daewon announced from the viewing box above. "Kill the beast or die." A soldier handed Taesu a spear. It was simple wood with an iron tip. Nothing more. "This is your weapon," Daewon said. "You may begin." The gates opened. The Varkesh charged. It was fast, impossibly fast for something so large. The ground shook with each step. Taesu barely dove to the side in time, feeling the wind as the creature's claws sliced through the air where his head had been. The nobles laughed and cheered. They were enjoying the show. Taesu ran. He sprinted across the arena, putting distance between himself and the beast. Running was not cowardice. Running was survival. A soldier who could not run was a dead soldier. The Varkesh followed, roaring with frustration. It was faster than Tesu, but it could not turn as quickly. Every time it got close, Tesu changed direction. He zigged and zagged across the sand, staying just out of reach. While he ran, he studied the creature. He looked at its body, searching for weakness. The scales covered almost everything, thick and overlapping, like armor plates. But there were gaps. Under the jaw, where the scales did not meet. Behind the knees, where the joints bent. At the base of the tail, where it connected to the body, small targets. Very small. But targets nonetheless. The Varkesh finally cornered him against the arena wall. It rose up on its back legs, raising both claws high. Its mouth opened wide, showing teeth the size of knives. Tesu did not run this time. He grabbed a handful of sand and threw it into the creature's eyes. The Varkesh screamed and stumbled back, temporarily blinded. Tesu rolled between its legs and came up behind it. He jabbed his spear at the back of its knee, aiming for the gap in the scales. The spear bounced off. The gap was too small. But the beast stumbled anyway, surprised by the attack. The fight continued for over an hour. Tesu could not hurt the creature, but he could tire it out. He kept moving, kept dodging, kept throwing sand and rocks. He made the Varkesh chase him around and around the arena until its movements became slow and clumsy. Finally, he saw his chance. The beast lunged at him one more time, its mouth open wide. Instead of dodging, Tesu stepped to the side and thrust his spear upward, putting all his weight behind it. The iron tip went into the soft tissue under the creature's jaw, through its mouth, into its brain. The Varkesh screamed. It thrashed wildly, nearly crushing Tesu under its weight. Then it collapsed and lay still. The arena was silent. Tesu stood over the dead beast, covered in its black blood. His spear had broken inside the creature. His body was covered in cuts and bruises. But he was alive. He cheated. One noble shouted. He did not fight with honor. Daewon raised his hand. The rules say nothing about honor. The rules say only to kill the beast. The human has passed. The third trial was the hardest. They took Tesu deep beneath the palace, to a room that few had ever seen. It was called the Chamber of Silence. A small stone room, barely 10 feet wide, lined with special crystals that blocked all sensation. The trial of spirit, the queen said. She had come to watch this final test herself. The chamber removes all light, all sound, all feeling. There is nothing inside but yourself. Prisoners usually go mad within hours. How long must I stay? Tesu asked. Or until you beg to be released. Tesu looked at Yuna one last time. Then he walked into the chamber, the door sealed behind him. The darkness was complete. Not just an absence of light, but an absence of everything. Tesu could not see, could not hear, could not feel. He could not even feel his own heartbeat. He thought he would go mad. He thought he would scream and cry and beg for release, but instead sat down on the cold floor and began to count. 1, 2, 3, 4. He counted to 1,000. Then he started over. He did math problems in his head. He recited old poems from school. He sang songs silently, hearing the music only in his memory. And he thought about Yuna. He thought about her smile when she had first learned his name. He thought about the way her 4 eyes sparkled when she laughed. He thought about how she had risked everything to save a stranger from another world. He could not let her down. Day after day passed. His body grew weak from thirst and hunger. His mind drifted in and out of darkness. But he did not break. He did not beg. On the 7th day, the door opened. Light flooded in, blinding and beautiful. Hands reached for him, lifting him up. He heard Yuna's voice, crying and laughing at the same time. You passed, she said. All 3 trials. You did it. Tesu smiled weakly. I told you. Humans never give up. Then he closed his eyes and let the darkness take him. News traveled fast among the stars. The Dominion of Krath was an empire built on blood and conquest. They had ruled over 100 worlds for 10,000 years. Their armies were the largest in the known galaxy. Their warships were the most powerful. They took whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted it. No one had ever stopped them. When the Krath heard about the human who had survived the 3 trials, they became very interested. A creature with no powers that could defeat an Alari war beast. A mind that could survive the Chamber of Silence. Such a species might be useful. They could make excellent slaves. Or excellent weapons. The Krath ambassador arrived at Volantis 3 months after the trials ended. His name was Commander Rockjin, and he was enormous. Even bigger than Day 1. His gray skin was covered in battle scars. His eyes were cold and dead, like stones. He walked into the throne room like he owned it. He did not bow to the queen. He did not show any respect at all. "We have come for the human," he said simply. "Give it to us." Queen Hannah sat on her crystal throne and looked at him with ancient eyes. She had dealt with the Krath before. She knew what they were. Bullies, murderers, thieves with armies. "The human is under my daughter's protection," she replied calmly. "He is not mine to give." "Then we will take him," Rockjin smiled. His teeth were sharp, filed 2 points in the Krath warrior tradition. "We have 100 warships waiting at the edge of your system. Surrender the human, or we will burn your world to ash. We will kill every Aelari, man, woman, and child. We will turn your beautiful palace into rubble." How the court fell silent. 100 warships. The Alori had only 30 ships in their entire defense fleet. The numbers were impossible, but Queen Hannah did not flinch. She did not beg. She did not show even a trace of fear. "Leave my world," she said. "The Aelari do not surrender to threats. We never have. We never will." Rockjin's smile faded. "Then you will all die." He turned and walked out of the throne room without another word. 3 days later, the war began. The Krath attacked without warning. Their ships appeared from hyperspace and immediately began destroying everything in their path. Orbital stations, communication satellites, trading vessels, anything with an Alari signature. General Day 1 led the defense. He gathered every ship in the fleet and flew out to meet the enemy, but it was hopeless. The Krath ships were newer and stronger. Their weapons punched through Aelari shields like paper. The first battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, Day 1 had lost half his fleet. He retreated to Volantis to defend the homeworld. Over the next few weeks, the war got worse. Krath forces landed on outer colony worlds. Cities burned. Millions of Aelari died. The enemy pushed closer and closer to Volantis every day. Yuna watched the news reports with growing fear. She saw images of burning cities. She heard stories of Krath soldiers killing civilians for sport. She began to wonder if she had doomed her people by protecting one human. Tesu watched too. He sat in his room in the palace, staring at maps and reports. His eyes were dark with thought. He said very little. One night he came to Yuna's chambers. "I need to speak with your mother," he said. "Why?" "Because I know how to win this war." Yuna stared at him. "Tesu, the Krath have 3 times our ships. They have better weapons, better soldiers. How can we possibly win?" Tesu looked at her with steady eyes. "By fighting like humans." The War Council met in secret that night. The room was deep underground, protected from enemy sensors. Queen Hannah sat at the head of the long table. Day 1 sat on her right, looking tired and defeated. The other generals looked the same. They had been losing for weeks. Tesu stood before them, a small human surrounded by powerful aliens. "You fight like immortals," he said. "That is your problem." Day 1 looked up sharply. "What does that mean?" "It means you think too big. You plan for decades. You conserve your forces. You worry about the long game." Tesu shook his head. "But war is not about living forever. War is about making the enemy die faster than you." He spread maps across the table. Maps of Krath positions. Maps of supply routes. Maps of weak points. The Krath are overconfident. They think they have already won. They spread their forces thin, taking territory instead of finishing the fight. Tesu pointed at several locations. "These are their supply lines. Long and weak. If we hit them here, here, and here, their main fleet cannot get fuel or food. We do not have enough ships for such attacks, Daewon said. You do not need ships. You need small teams. 5 or 10 warriors, moving fast and quiet. Hit a supply station, plant explosives, disappear before anyone knows you were there. Blow up a convoy, vanish into space. Never fight a battle you cannot win. The generals looked at each other. This was not how Allery fought. It seemed cowardly, dishonorable. This is not our way, the queen said slowly. No, Tesu agreed. But your way is losing. Try mine. Queen Hannah was silent for a long moment. Then she turned to Daewon. Give this human command of our special forces. Let him train them his way. Daewon's mouth fell open. Your Majesty, you cannot be serious. I'm always serious. Do as I command. The next 6 months changed the war completely. Tesu trained elite strike teams personally. He taught them to move silently through space. He taught them to plant explosives and run. He taught them that survival mattered more than glory. The first attack hit a Krath supply station in the outer system. 20 Allery warriors against 200 Krath guards. The Allery did not try to fight. They landed quietly, planted bombs, and flew away. The station exploded an hour later, destroying a month of fuel supplies. The Krath were confused. They sent ships to find the attackers. But Tesu's teams were already gone. More attacks followed. Supply convoys vanished. Communication stations went dark. Officers were killed in their beds. The Krath never knew where the next attack would come. They could not defend everywhere at once. Slowly, the war turned. The great Krath fleet sat in space, unable to advance because they had no supplies. Their soldiers grew tired and afraid. Their officers argued with each other, blaming each other for the failures. After 6 months, the Krath withdrew from Allari space. The war was over. The humans had taught the Allari how to win. The victory celebration lasted for 7 days and 7 nights. People danced in the streets of every city on Volantis. Musicians played songs of triumph. Nobles raised their glasses in toast after toast. Warriors told stories of the impossible victories against the mighty Krath. But through all the celebrations, one name was spoken more than any other, Te-Su, the human who had saved them. The alien who had taught them a new way to fight, the weak creature who had proven himself stronger than anyone expected. Daewon found Tesu standing alone on a high balcony of the palace. Below them, fireworks exploded in bright colors. The sounds of celebration drifted up from the streets, but Tesu was not watching the party. He was looking at the stars. I owe you an apology, Daewon said quietly. Tesu turned to look at him. For what? For everything. The general's voice was heavy with shame. I hit you. I insulted you. I wanted you dead. I called you a creature, an insect, less than nothing. He paused. And you saved my people anyway. Tesu smiled slightly. You were protecting your world. I understand that. Daewon shook his head. It was more than that. I was afraid of you. Afraid of me. I have lived for 500 years. I have faced 1,000 enemies. Warriors with powers that could crush mountains. Monsters with claws that could tear through steel. One met his eyes. None of them scared me like you did. Why? Because you are impossible. You have no powers, no special abilities. You will die in what seems like moments to us. You are small and soft and weak in every way that matters. The general paused. But you do things that should not be possible. You make us question everything we believe about strength. Tesu was quiet for a moment. Then he put his hand on the general's shoulder. Strength is not about what you are born with, he said. It is about what you refuse to lose. Daewon nodded slowly. Then he did something he had never done for anyone outside the royal family. He bowed, deep and respectful. You have my loyalty, human. Now and always. He walked away, leaving Tesu alone with the stars. But not alone for long. Yuna found him there as she always did. She stood beside him at the railing, her silver skin glowing softly in the moonlight. For a long time, neither of them spoke. They did not need words. "What happens now?" Taesu finally asked. Yuna took his hand in hers. Her fingers were cool and smooth, so different from his warm, rough skin. "I want to tell my mother the truth," she said. "What truth?" She turned to face him. Her 4 eyes were soft and vulnerable, showing emotions she had hidden for centuries. "That I love you. That I want to spend my life with you. Whatever time we have together." Taesu's heart seemed to stop. "Yuna, your people live for thousands of years. I will be dead in a few decades. 60 years, maybe 70 if I'm lucky. Are you sure you want that?" "I have lived for 300 years, she said, "and I have never felt as alive as I do when I am with you. I would rather have 50 years of true happiness than 10,000 years of empty existence." Taesu pulled her close. He held her tight, feeling her heart beat against his chest. "Then let us tell your mother." The throne room was packed the next day. Word had spread that Princess Yuna would make an important announcement. Nobles came from across the planet. Ambassadors watched from their viewing boxes. Even common people gathered outside the palace, listening to speakers that broadcast the proceedings. Queen Hannah sat on her crystal throne, ancient and powerful. Her 4 eyes watched everything with patient wisdom. Behind her, the High Priestess Su waited with a sour expression. Yuna walked forward with Taesu at her side. Their hands were joined together. Everyone could see it. Mother Yuna began. "I come before you with a request." "Speak," the queen said. Why Yuna lifted her chin high. "I wish to take Taesu as my husband. I ask for your blessing on our union." The court exploded into chaos. Nobles shouted in outrage. Some laughed in disbelief. Others cried out that it was impossible, unthinkable, against every sacred law. Su-Ah stepped forward, her voice sharp as a blade. "This is madness. A princess of the blood cannot marry an alien. It goes against nature itself. The royal bloodline would be corrupted." More voices joined the protest. They called Taesu terrible names. They accused Yuna of betraying her people, her heritage, her duty. Through it all, Yuna stood firm. She did not let go of Taesu's hand. Queen Hannah raised one hand. Slowly, silence fell. "Who is he?" the queen inquired, her voice cutting through the chaos. Yuna met her mother's eyes without fear. "My human husband," she answered. The words hung in the air like thunder. Su-Ah gasped. The nobles went completely silent. Even Daewon's eyebrows rose in surprise. "You've already married?" the queen asked. "Not yet," Yuna replied. "But I will. With or without your blessing, mother. I love him. I choose him. And no law in this empire will change that." Queen Hannah rose from her throne. She walked down the crystal steps slowly, her golden robes trailing behind her. She stopped directly in front of Tae-Su. She was tall. He had to look up to meet her eyes. "You're small," she said. "You are weak. You will die in what feels like a moment to us." Yes, Taesu agreed. "And yet my daughter chose you." She did. "Shh! Why should I permit this union?" Taesu thought carefully before answering. The entire empire was watching. Every word mattered. "Your daughter does not need someone who will live forever," he said finally. "She needs someone who will make every moment matter. That is what humans do. We do not have eternity. So we love harder. We fight harder. We hold on tighter than any species that takes time for granted." He paused. "I cannot give her centuries, but I can give her everything I have. Every day, every hour, every breath. That is my promise." The queen was silent for a very long time. The court held its breath. Then, slowly, Queen Hannah smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it was there. "The Allery have ruled for 10,000 years, she said, "because we recognized strength in unexpected forms." She reached out and placed her hand. Over their joined fingers, perhaps. There is something to be learned from creatures who burn so. Briefly and so bright, she looked at her daughter with something like pride. The union is blessed. The wedding was held 1 month later. It was the largest celebration in Allery history. Ships came from across the empire. Ambassadors came from a dozen other species.